By all accounts, William the Conqueror was a tough ruler. He ruthlessly squashed rebellions such as in 1069 and 1070 during the Harrying of the North, when he devastated northern England. But what sort of a world creates a man like William the Conqueror? How did his early experiences shape his personality? By modern standards, William's childhood was shockingly harsh and offers us a glimpse into the experiences of Norman aristocratic children coming of age during the turbulent 11th century. William's father was Duke Robert the Magnificent. By the 1030s, when William was a small child, he was already being treated as his father's potential heir. In 1035, William, probably only 7 or 8 years old, took part in a ceremony in which he acknowledged his father's grant to an important Norman noble. During this ceremony, William received a blow. This was meant to be a physical manifestation of the pact to which all could refer in the future should any disputes arise. The Normans believed that a small boy would remember the agreement better by the blow he'd endured. It's surprising to moderns to imagine a child being subjected to such a ritual. And yet, for the Normans, this was vital to the initiation of their sons into the world of knightly politics, in which the mutual obligations between vassal and lord were at the heart of society. As son of the Duke, William received a princely education. With his tutor, he learned basic Latin. He also was educated in the ethics and traditions of the Norman elite. And of course, William was trained to be a knight, perfecting the art of cavalry warfare, at which his people excelled. He learned to fight in a group of mounted Normans. He was taught to steer hot-blooded war horses while wielding his shield and lance. A good portion of William's education came from his own father, Duke Robert, who personally imparted his skills to his son. Like all medieval princes, William was brought up with a group of aristocratic boys who would become the central core of his knights. Among these were his cousin, Guy of Burgundy, and William Osbern, both of whom were like brothers to William. In 1035, Duke Robert decided to make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. This alarmed the Norman nobility, who feared the Duke might die during this voyage, opening the door to instability at home. Robert made meticulous preparations for his departure. He held an assembly of all the Norman magnates, presenting them with his son. The Duke named William as his heir and asked the nobles to accept him as lord. Despite William's tender age, the Normans gladly gave him their fealty, a testament to their confidence in Robert. In Norman society, a ruler could designate his heir, but he must also gain the agreement of the great men of the realm. Unfortunately, the worst fears of the nobles came to pass. In July of 1035, Duke Robert died while returning from Jerusalem. This was a great blow to William, who revered his father. Although the nobles confirmed William's succession as Duke of Normandy, the reign of a minor was inherently tumultuous, and many anticipated troubled times. In introducing this phase of William's life, the chronicler William of Malmesbury quotes a passage from the Bible: "Woe to the land whose king is a child." William's relative, Count Gilbert of Brionne, was named chief guardian of the 8-year-old Duke. William's protectors tried to maintain stability, but by the 1040s, many nobles were settling their rivalries through bloody private warfare, and the young Duke's representatives had little power to stop them. The violence was spilling into the ducal court. Some factions saw the minority as a prime opportunity to either seize control of the child ruler or eliminate him, whichever might better serve their ends. Gilbert of Brionne was killed within months of attaining his post. In the early 1040s, an assassin managed to enter the child duke's quarters and slay Osbern the Steward, one of William's primary guardians. Some accounts claim that Osbern was stabbed to death in William's own bedchamber as he lay sleeping. One can only imagine what sort of an impact such experiences would have had on a small boy. William would have learned quickly that he'd been born into a world of ruthlessness, and that survival required him to discover his own ruthlessness. Above all, he vowed that one day he would, like his father, impose order through strong rule. Crucial to young William's survival was the continued presence at court of his mother, Herleva, and her male relatives. An intelligent and determined woman, Herleva was fiercely protective of her son. Some accounts claim that her brother, Walter, slept beside his young nephew to ensure his safety, and occasionally had to flee with the boy in the dead of night to protect his life. Later, William would praise the actions of his mother's family during these difficult years. While the violence that plagued the court of the Duke of Normandy during William's minority is striking, historian David Bates cautions us from viewing the period as pure chaos. The upper Norman nobility struggled with one another for control of the duchy's future, but their feuding was governed by a strict code which limited the brutality. Bates calls this culturally structured violence. As an example, Bates points to the slaying of Osbern the Steward, which was committed by the son of a nobleman called Roger of Montgomery. William's guardians at the court expelled Roger of Montgomery from lands that had been granted to him by the late Duke Robert. Roger's son killed Osbern in retaliation for this affront. One of Osbern's followers avenged his master's death by killing the murderer. This brought an end to the feud, and in the future, both factions collaborated. Roger of Montgomery's son, Roger II, cooperated closely with Osbern's son, William Fitz-Osbern, during William the Conqueror's reign. Having glimpsed the childhood of William the Conqueror, perhaps we can better understand the harshness of his later rule. The turmoil that he experienced as a boy, rather than breaking him, hardened him, and made him determined to be his own master. He meant to impose an order that would render impossible the upheaval that he'd known as a child.